Hi, and thanks for joining me for this flip of the Crafter's Companion box kit number 15. It's called Cute as Button. And this video is going to be a little bit different from how I've done my past flip videos. I got some great feedback, and I'm hoping that maybe you'd give me some more feedback to see if this is a style of video editing that you prefer. So I'm actually going to start off showing you all of the cards that I made in this craft session. And this way you can see what I made, and if you're interested in seeing how to make it, then please do continue watching. And the other change that I'm going to make with this particular video is I have got some feedback that some of my videos in the past were just sped up way too fast, and while overall that makes for a shorter video, it can be very hard to follow along if you're trying to learn how to do or how to replicate a similar card. So this time I've changed how I edited this video to actually keep some parts in real time. That way I can explain in a little bit more depth and with a little bit more time how and what I'm doing and how to execute it. And for parts where it's just nothing that you wouldn't be able to do yourself, I'm just going to continue to speed those up, and hopefully that's a good compromise, but definitely let me know what you think of this video style. This does end up being quite a bit longer than my other videos, but hopefully it kind of covers what you're looking to get out of these videos. And if it doesn't, definitely leave me feedback. I love the constructive criticism. So there are all of the cards that I made in this craft session, and let's dive in. This is my first card. It's a flat card. And I pulled in a stamp set from Sunny Studio Stamps. It's got some really cute little buttons, and they come in two sizes, and each size button actually has sort of a shadow and the background stamp for it. And if you don't have that, you could also make flat buttons by just using a circle punch and a hole punch to punch the little 4 little holes in the center of the button. So if you're looking to create something that doesn't have the dimension, let's say you want to put it through the mail, you don't want to have to risk it not going through or getting damaged or having to pay extra postage, these techniques might be worthwhile because they'll keep your card nice and flat. When I did the unboxing of this kit, I did mention that I felt like that was sort of a missed opportunity because I think pretty much all of the image stamps anyways incorporate a button, and so they aren't full images in and of themselves. They actually have a portion of the image that's missing with the intention that you would place a button there. And I feel like they should have included either stamps or a die or both, so that you could actually continue to use those stamps even when your buttons are all used up. They did give a very generous supply of buttons, but so I think there's lots to work from there. But let's say you wanted a different color button, and because in the kit they've only provided, I think it's like 4 different color buttons, and so if that doesn't fit in with the color scheme of the card that you're creating, it would have been nice to have other options. And so I did go outside the kit a little bit, and I will later on as well, but I just wanted to show just an option if you happen to have something in your stash that might work, like the Sunny Studio stamp set, or if you just wanted an alternative and you wanted to just punch out your own flat buttons from cardstock, you could definitely do that and still create a nice flat card. So I did also prepare some little masks. So these I just created by stamping the little hot air balloon and then stamping the button and then fussy cutting around it. And the reason for this is that I'm going to ink some clouds and maybe some grass. So there I just did just a loose freehand cut of some grass, and I don't want to ink right over my images, and so that's why I'm creating these masks so that I can cover what I just colored in and only apply ink to the background. It's not going to be perfect for a couple reasons. One, the image and the buttons were stamped separately. It's not just one stamp, so it's not going to be super precise. But it's going to be close enough, and I don't know if there may be better ways to do this. If you know a better way, definitely let me know, because I know that certainly I could have maybe inked the entire background and then stamp these images separately and fussy cut them and place the images over top. That would still be a relatively flat card. But you've probably heard me say before, I'm not the best fussy cutter, and in the end, of course, I did also have to fussy cut the masks anyways, so maybe maybe it would have been pretty much the same amount of work. But the masks I can use over and over again, because they've still got like a little bit of a stick to them. So so I can always, and what I do is I just stick it right back onto the packaging so that I can use it again if I need to. And I'm going in with a smaller brush just to fill in a little bit the areas that were not, covered well. So with the inking, and those little brushes really do come in handy. And I picked out Enjoy the Ride because I thought maybe that was kind of like a nice little sentiment with the bicycle. And here where I'm at, a lot of times during the summer and fall, I'll see like a lot of people taking hot air balloon rides. I think there must be like a business nearby me that that takes people up, and it's really so pretty to see. Every once in a while there'll be a group of like 8 hot air balloons in the sky, and that was sort of the look I was going for. This next card is going to be my flat card, and I did have a boo-boo the first time I attempted the previous card, but that's okay. I'm still going to use that card blank. I'm just going to cover it up, so nothing goes to waste, right? So usually when I do my mats and layers, I do leave a little bit of a white border of the card blank showing through, but because I did stamp all the way to the edge and made a mistake, I'm going to take my first mat all the way to the edge and just cover the entire front of the card blank. That way you don't see any of that boo-boo. But, and I had a little bit of a hard time getting that just right, so that's why when I put my layers down, I don't always press hard. That way you can still lift it back up, even with fairly strong adhesive. But just in case, I'm adding a little bit of liquid glue so that A, I have a little bit of time to adjust, and B, if I did lose any stickiness by peeling that back up, the tacky glue is definitely going to hold it very well. And I'm going to burnish that in really nicely. And the black cardstock is from my stash. That didn't come in the kit, but I think it's fairly standard. So you'll likely, if you want to recreate this, have some in your stash. And off to that corner there is a loose stamping of what I'm going for. So I'm gonna use the vase, and the stamp itself has the vase and the stems of the flowers, and the intention is that you use the buttons to represent the flowers. And I don't know if I did this the way that the designers intended it to be used, but I used these what I think are flowers, right? I mean, they're a little bit kind of perfectly shaped and a little bit spirally. So I just figured they're like kind of abstract flowers. I'm not sure, but I'm using them as flowers. And what I did was I created, again, masks for each of the flowers because they are grouped a little bit. And as you can see with my template in the upper right hand corner, if you just stamped everything without masking, there's a lot of collision because of where the stems are positioned, and there would be some overlap in the flowers. And so if you wanted to have a close grouping like that, you want to mask and stamp as you go so that the images in the front are blocked off and you don't stamp over them when you go to stamp images that are in the background. And what I did was using the vase stamp, I just held that in front of on my cardstock and positioned it, and then I put my masks kind of where I would want them to fall, and I'm going to stamp my vase down first, and I'm gonna try to line it up as best as I can with I've been really enjoying the Make Art station because that whole kind of blue plate is metal, and then you get those silver discs that you see. Those are magnets, and they're pretty strong. They'll hold down your project. And as a add-on accessory, you can buy this stamp positioner. And if you've seen my videos in the past, you've seen me use a positioning tool like this, but what makes this one really awesome is that L-shaped positioning tool has really strong magnets, and that's gonna stay in place. And if you use it the way that I'm using it, will also hold down your card, whatever you're stamping on. But this way, you don't have to use one hand to hold that in position and the other hand to stamp. And if you needed to re-ink or whatever, you'd have to really be careful to always kind of hold down that L-shaped tool. This, because it has really strong magnets, you can let go. You don't have to hold that down. And you can do whatever else you need, even leave and come back to it, and it's gonna stay there. So here I've stamped my vase, and these stamps, even though they're acrylic stamps, they actually, stamp really well. That first impression was actually pretty good. I just wanted it was a nice complete impression. I just wanted it a tad darker. So I went in for a second stamping. I don't know why, but I actually prefer this style of stamp positioning tool to the something like the Misty. I don't have the Misty, but I have something similar that kind of works on that hinge system. So that this is kind of what I've been going to when I stamp, especially on small projects like these. So here I'm going to pull out the 3 flowers, and I'm actually going to pull off, at this point, all of my masks. And I wanted to mask them off because some of the stems might fall behind the flower, and I just didn't want to actually stamp what should be in the foreground. So I'm going to pull all of these off, and you'll see in a second how I'm kind of thinking about the reason why this is taking so long is I'm trying to figure out what order I'm supposed to be stamping in. And that's the thing with masks. I don't do it that often, so every time I do, I have to take a beat and really think about what I'm doing, because in the past I've gotten to a point and then at the very end I will have forgotten to mask something off and make a boo-boo that you can't really cover up. And if you wanted to really have it look the way that you intend, you just have to start over. So parts of this probably even slower than what a normal crafter who knows what they're doing would do. But the general rule is that you should stamp first what you want in the foreground. So whatever you want to be seen, that isn't, being blocked, by anything else in front of it, that's what you want to stamp first. So I'm deciding that the larger flowers are going to be in the foreground and the smaller ones are going to be in the background. They're going to be behind my larger flowers. And so I just put the stamp where I want. I put my stamp positioning tool where it needs to go, and then I pick up my stamp and can bring it right back down. So now that you have that stamped, what you can do is then place your mask over top of what you just stamped. That way, anything that gets stamped nearby that is overlapping that image, it's going to fall behind that image and not actually kind of mess up the illusion of the layers and the depth. So I'm going to cover up what we just stamped, and then I'm going to keep going in that manner where whatever is going to be the next image, I'm going to stamp that, mask it, and then whatever's in the background, I'm going to stamp last. So that pretty much covers the stamping, and it took a long time getting there, but I finally got there. So I'm gonna actually not color this image at all. I really like the just the black and white of it, and to just use a couple of colors. It makes this look very clean, still really cute, and very tone on tone. So I'm using Beacon 3-in-1 to adhere my buttons to the card, and all I need to do is just put a sentiment on this, and then I'll be all done. And I definitely like using a stamp positioning tool, especially when you get to this point and your card's all about done, just about done, and you would hate to make a mistake at this late stage in the game. So definitely haven't been using it very long, the stamp positioning tool from the Make Art Station, but really love it. I cannot recommend it enough. It's definitely become a staple, and it's so easy because it all just stays adhered to. Since it's a magnet, it stays adhered to that platform, and it's just easy storage too, and it's just always there. So really love it. So that wraps up this card. And the other thing that I've noticed when I started using this kit is that I sort of wish the sentiments, that there were larger sentiments. All of the sentiments that are included in the stamp set, really nice, very all-purpose, covers a broad range of occasions, but the font on them, I mean, they're all kind of small. And if you were making cards for like somebody whose vision wasn't so great, it would be a real challenge for them, I think, to read some of these. I would have much preferred that maybe they, I don't know, removed 25% of the images that they gave us and instead included some sentiments that were in a larger font, and then also included some stamps of buttons. So I can't help thinking that way. I'm a project manager by career, and if I were project managing this project, I would have, those are the things that I would have suggested to the designers, to give this kit a little bit more longevity, but also a little bit more variety. Here I'm just using some of the super cute, not cute. I mean, these are beautiful papers. They are, even though the concept of the buttons is a very cutesy one, I felt that the paper selection is really nice. It's got some really lovely colors. I love the color palette, and a lot of the designs are very, very beautiful. I wouldn't say that they were on the cutesy side at all. So really great, and kind of hemming and hawing about where to put this little sentiment. And again, I'm not going to color that bird in the center there because I am just really enjoying just clean, crisp black and white. And I'm not the best colorist anyway, so it's not it's not something that is uh, anything that is something I would want to highlight in a project. I do okay and I love learning and practicing, and I just like to color just for relaxation. But, a lot of times simple is better and black and white is not incomplete or bad. It's sometimes a really nice design. Here I'm using 3D Collage glue. It's a little bit new to me ever since I've started exploring more Crafter's Companion products. They use it. Some of the designers on Crafters TV use it quite a lot, and so I picked some up, and I'm really, really digging it. And I like doing this specifically. So I love just giving a soft bend to a banner or a sentiment and popping a little bit of that glue gel in the center, but then tacking down the ends. That way you get a little bit of dimension, not a lot. You can control how much you get, but everything is well secured. You've got, the center secured and both ends secured. So this is going to be my interactive card, and I'm again bringing in something outside the kit. This is from Crafter's Companion, though. It's from their Crafty Fun collection, and it's a cut and emboss folder that is also cute as a button because it's got all these little buttons around the border. And I think my plate combination was just a little bit too aggressive, so I did get some cracks and some tears, but I'm okay with that because it has that sort of, this is white core paper, so it's showing a little bit of that sort of distressed, and I'm okay with that. Certainly, if that's not something that you like, you could definitely figure out the right plate combination. And I don't have a Gemini machine, so I couldn't go by what they would necessarily recommend for their machine. I had to just sort of figure out what works in my Cuttlebug. So I ran a piece of their cardstock through the cut and emboss folder, and that cuts out this really nice aperture for you. And here I'm just going to line the aperture with some foam strips. And the foam that I use, I buy it by the sheet, and it already has adhesive on one side, so all I need to do is just put adhesive on the other side to make it double-sided. And because I like for my shakers to have noise, generally I double up on the foam because a lot of my shaker bits have more dimension than a single layer of foam would be sufficient for, because you really kind of need it to be thick enough to give enough room for whatever shaker bits you're using to move around. And you do definitely want to make sure that you butt up your foam so that there are no gaps and none of your shaker bits can slip out. And so you just want to take it edge to edge and really butt up all of your foam so that it makes a nice seal. And with acetate, I tend to use double-sided dry adhesive as opposed to PVA or a liquid glue, because I think it just tends to stick, in my experience, a little bit better. So for the shaker bits, I'm actually going to use buttons. So this is different for me. I don't generally have a supply of buttons on hand, but I thought it would be really cute to have little buttons moving around on the inside. So here what I'm doing is I just take a little bit of anti-static powder, which in my case, I think I'm using baby powder, but you could use something like cornstarch. And I'm just using a little brush to wipe the inside edges of the foam. I haven't pulled up the paper liner on the back of my foam adhesive. That's just, this step is just to really remove any stick that is potentially on the edges. That way your shaker bits don't stick to your foam. And I did double check in advance that 2 thicknesses of foam would be enough height or depth for the buttons to move around in. And I slipped a piece of the pattern paper behind my aperture so that I can see, what colors are in the pattern paper, because that's going to be behind my shaker window. And I'm just hand selecting the colors and the size of buttons that I want. And this is a good way to kind of preview, how your shaker is going to look. And what I normally do is I just do 2 layers of acetate. And that way I have a full piece. It's fully encapsulated. The shaker bits have foam on both sides. And I did run out of foam. So here I'm showing, I think I always talk about how I make these strips, but I'm not so sure I've ever shown it. So this is how, this is just a portion of the foam sheet that I have. And as I mentioned, on one side, it already has adhesive. So I'm laying down double-sided adhesive tape on the side that doesn't already have adhesive. And certainly if you buy fun foam or foam sheets that don't have any adhesive at all, I think it's slightly cheaper. You would just need to, if you're planning on using it the way I use it, you would just need to put adhesive on both sides. But as it is, the foam sheets are fairly inexpensive, especially as compared to buying foam squares that are pre-cut or foam strips that are pre-cut. And this way you can actually customize and cut whatever width foam strips as you like. Just use thinner double-sided adhesive tape or wider double-sided adhesive tape. And I just use a steel ruler and my craft knife. And then all I do is just peel off one side, stick it right back down, and now I have double height foam. So that's something that I found is just a nice, it's a cost saver for one, but then it's also just convenient too, because that way you get, you can make what you need to whatever width, whatever height that you want. And here I'm just laying down a little bit more adhesive just on that inner frame. And I already put down the pattern paper. I used Collal all-purpose glue. It's a very slippery, wet adhesive, so you've got a lot of time to move that around, and so I like it for things where I know I'm going to need that extra time to position. And here I'm using, this is not in the kit, this is from the Sunny Studio stamp set that I showed earlier. So here, this stamp set does have a coordinating die set that you can buy separately, and it's really cute. This is the first time I'm using it, so I'm gonna have to snip because it's in the style of dies where they have that little bit of metal that still connects them, and I prefer to buy dies that are already separate and everything, but I know that's not always what you get, and so sometimes you do have to snip these apart. And what I do is I don't know if this is worth mentioning or leaving in, but I just decided to leave it in. What I do is I just pull out some tape, and because I have dogs who sometimes, come hang out with me in my craft room, I just want to make sure these little metal bits are not finding their way onto the floor or into their tummies. So what I do is I just have something sticky. And as soon as I kind of break these metal bits off, I can put them on my tape, and then I wrap the tape to enclose those metal parts, and that way everything is there are no sharp edges anywhere, and I can throw that away and be confident that it's not going to end up in my in my puppy's tummies. So here's why having a little button die would be so cute, because then you can make buttons out of any color. You can cut it out of pattern paper. I'm just kind of digging through the scraps that I have left over from my previous cards to just see if there's a good selection that I want to work from. And, how great is it if, the kit had included a button die? The kit includes dies that are great. They're general purpose shapes. There's a circle, a square, and a heart. And you can make a lot of use out of that. Like I said, basic shapes are great, very general purpose. But if you're gonna have a kit like cute as a button, just go for it. Go all about the buttons and give people something that is going to really extend the life of everything that they have in the kit, and it's going to be fully, well-rounded. So I'm not hating on the kit. I know I'm harping on it, but I do like this kit a lot. I just feel like it could have been better. You know what I mean? Like, it could have been even more perfect if they had included some of these extra elements. And I'll be honest, I did buy that Sunny Studios stamp and die set specifically for this kit because I do like the kit, and I just wanted to round it out for myself. If they weren't going to include stamps and a die to stamp and cut buttons, I definitely wanted to have that in my stash so that I can go back to this kit time and time again and have everything that I need. So so I do like this kit. I know it sounds like I'm complaining a lot, but I just feel like had they included that to start, it would have made the kit all that much better. So I'm just going to continue to die cut a few of these from different colors. And a lot of times when I approach a kit, I'll have an idea for what I want to create, and I'll have thought through maybe 80% of a card design, and I will have prepped maybe 70% or as much as I could. But there's still that last 20% that I am doing on the fly, just based on how things are progressing, and sometimes new ideas come to mind as I craft, and so I don't have everything fully planned to the T, and I'm just making cards for my own personal use, so I don't have like a version of this prepared in advance and then I'm just redoing it all for camera sake for the video. What you see is what I'm creating and is what I'm giving away at some point. So so that is kind of why there's some parts of my card making that you'll see me just move things around, try different things, and that's mostly because especially when it comes to like the final finishing touches, I haven't thought that far in advance. So that's this card. That's my interactive shaker card, and I love the sound of these buttons shaking around. So I usually use something like seed beads, and I love that shaker sound that the seed beads make. But these make it's a very different sound, and it's really, really nice. I mean, I like my shakers to be noisemakers, as I like to say, and it's really satisfying to shake these around. So really, really like that. Definitely will be incorporating buttons in my shakers in the future. This is going to be the first of 2 pop-up cards, and I think I know who I'm going to give this card to. But his birthday is not until I think November. Yeah, November. So I don't know. I might come up with a better card idea between now and November. But if I don't, this is the card that he's getting because I know he's a fan of lions. So I've just got the lion stamped out, super cute, and I used the circle die that came in the set, and I just did some fussy cutting of the balloons, which I thought were also really cute. That's a really fun way of using the buttons or integrating the buttons into a design. And I didn't color in the little tie ends because I wasn't sure what color buttons I was going to use. But once I had that figured out, I did go back in and color that. And again, I'm using some Beacon 3-in-1. I think that's the strongest glue that I have. It's often, I've heard other people at least say that it's sort of like hot glue, but not hot, so no risk of burning. So I did prepare this in advance, and it's so dinky. So I decided that I'm not going to use this piece that I prepared, and instead I'm going to still use the word cute. That did not come in this kit. It's a Crafter's Companion word edgeable die. But what I'm going to do is actually have it stand a little bit taller. So I'll explain what I did here, and this gives me an opportunity to kind of show you how I achieved this. So I am marking a couple lines. This first line is at 1/2 inch. That's going to fold in. This next line is 3 inches up from that, then 1 inch up from that, and then another 1/2 inch. So what I did in advance was I put some washi tape right where the cut line is. That way I know where my cut line is. And I am actually going to tape that down at the second from the bottom line, the second line that I drew, because that's going to be the top of my words. And I just marked where these word edgeables at the bottom, you'll see the little notches. I put a little tick mark there, and then I drew a straight line across. And that way now I can line up my die so I know it's going to be straight. And so I'm going to do a partial die cut. I'm going to line up my plate so that it's right where the cut line is, which is marked by both the line and my piece of washi tape. And I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. So what that's going to do is it's going to cut all the way from the bottom to the top of my plate, which just reaches where that line is. So the design of the die itself does not cut the bottom edge, and that's what makes it an edgeable. So that's already going to stay attached to your card. Doing the partial die cut so that we don't cut all the way up to the top edge means that the top edge is going to still be attached to our card as well. So that's how I'm achieving the pop-up aspect of this by just using a word edgeable die. And this is something that I had done in a previous box kit. I think it was the statement word one, and I had a couple of questions as to how I did the partial die cutting, and hopefully this helps answer those questions. So now I'm scoring some lines. I did score at the bottom of the word, but you actually don't need to put that score line in. So if you're following with me, don't score that line. But you want to score the other lines, and then you can cut off your excess card. I just try to cut a length of card that's longer or taller than I need, and that way I can cut it down. So now I'm just going to cut off the excess of the word so that we can cut away the two sides and anything in the center that might still be attached. So I'm looking to see, what pieces need to fall out. Be careful not to cut all the way down because you still want the top edge to be attached. You just want it to be attached, though, where the letters are. So like the insides of the U, that we can cut away because that's not actually part of the letter. And don't worry that you don't see the full T, like the top of the T, because I die cut separately the whole word, and we'll put that on top. And you'll see that in a second here. So now to fold, you want to fold along the score line at the top of the word. You want to fold those 1/2 inch tabs are glue tabs. And then the 1-inch mark that is above the top, that's basically the distance that this is going to pop out from the back. Do not fold the at the line that's at the bottom of your word edge, because that just needs to stay straight. So I did score there, but I did not fold there because I realized afterwards that I don't need to fold there. So here's that extra die cut that I mentioned. So I just ran the same die through my die cutting machine, and because the bottom edge is not cut out, I just snipped along the bottom edge just to release it. So once you glue this on, just leave the top portion of the T hanging up there. Don't glue that part down. That way it stands up along with the rest of the word instead of folding back once the card is open. So that's how I like to use these word edgeables as a little pop-up, and it's really fun. It's and these words they're not quite as large and substantial as the happy birthday one that came in the statement word, but by doing it this way, where I leave a portion of the bottom kind of attached and raised up, it does make it look a little bit more substantial than it actually is. And then I'm going to use some of one of the stamps that comes with this stamp and die set to fill out the sentiment, so that it reads cute as a button. And again, all of that work that I did, I don't want to mess up at this point, so I'm using my stamp positioning tool to really make sure that if I needed to stamp it a second time that I could. But as you saw, it stamped fine the first time because I did do a couple of test stamps in advance, and usually that helps to prime your stamps anyways, so that worked out just fine. Now, the order that you adhere things in really just depends on how much you want to dress up things. So I put one tab down at the top, and then I'm going to glue my decorative layer over top of that, so that hides that little glue tab. And then I'm going to fold everything down and adhere the other end. And then again, I'm going to just cut a little strip of pattern paper to hide that glue tab as well. So you could leave all of that showing. It's not the end of the world if you don't cover that up. But in the past, when I haven't covered it up, I've always sort of regretted it. So I'm taking better care and attention to really cover those up. And I'm adding that scrap piece of paper I was stamping on. I'm adding that here so that I have a place to actually sign and write a little message on the card. And so that finishes my first pop-up card. I don't think I'm going to add a sentiment to the front. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll go back and add like a happy birthday. But I was really focused on the pop-up mechanism. So I kind of overlooked the sentiment on the front of the card. So this is my last card. It's another pop-up card. This is going to be a pop-up box. And I think there's plenty of dies out there that can cut the what you see here, just the template, but you could easily do this yourself. So whatever you want to fold your card down to, oh look, there's a mask from the first card, you would just cut your two pieces to whatever size card blank you generally use or want to use, and then give yourself an extra 1/2 inch on one side, and that's going to be your glue tab. Then you can decide what the dimensions of your box is gonna be. So how wide do you want the front of the box? How deep do you want the box? And you can just score and fold according to that, whatever aspect ratio you prefer, and whatever dimensions you prefer, and just make two the exact same, and then you'll have what you need to kind of put together this little pop-up box, and it will fold down to a standard size card. So here I'm using US A2 size, and once that's all adhered, it'll still fold down nice and flat and can go into your envelope for that particular card size. With the flaps on the top, you do want to make sure that you're only bending down 3 of the 4 flaps. Typically, you'll want the the backmost flap to stay straight and not to fold down, because that's going to be sort of the backdrop of your scene once it's opened. And I just butt this up. I do use liquid glue because A, it's strong, but B, it also gives time for wiggle room. Just butt this up, fold it down. It should fold and line up. All the edges should line up really neatly and fold exactly sort of in half. And then I started to put glue down on the other end of the flap, but then I did realize in time that's not how I like to assemble these cards, so I wiped that off. What I like to do is I like to put my little pop-up stands, and these are just 1-inch strip tall, and you just cut it to the width of your box and add, a half inch on either side, or 3/8 of an inch, however much you want for a glued tab. And I just miter in those glue tabs a little bit just so that it's a little bit less visible. But I like to put my pop-up stands in, and that way when I do the final gluing to the other side, I can glue down all of the tabs at one time. And it just ensures that when you go to fold this down, that everything's going to fold down nicely and will all be nice and flush. Normally, I would include 3 pop-up stands, but this time I'm only doing 2 because none of the stamps had coordinating dies, so that was going to mean a lot of fussy cutting, and so I didn't want to have to do a lot of fussy cutting, to be honest. So with 3 stands, the inclination would then be to really like fill it up a lot, and I was hoping to get by with not having to do a ton. That's the honest truth. So I'm gonna fold down all of my glue tabs, and it doesn't matter that some are coming, one way and some are going the other way. You just want to make sure that when you fold everything down, that it's nice and flush. And I'm gonna put glue on all of my tabs, so the 2 glue stands, or the 2 pop-up stands, and the side flap. And you don't need a ton of glue, but you definitely want to try to get to the edge if you can, just to make sure that everything is nice and secure. And I'm just going to use a little pokey tool just to bend these tabs down so that they actually fall into place. And once I close this flap down, then everything's going to find its position and then meet up really nicely. So if you've done it right, this should all be secured, and it should all fold down nicely. You shouldn't have any bumps or buckling or anything like that. And I didn't hold down the center pop-up stands long enough. So the tacky glue that I use is Line Co pH neutral, and especially in the climate that we have right now, it's really quick grab. Even on a normal day, it's fairly quick grab, but I find these days it's grabbing even quicker. But you still need to give it a good second or two, or press it nice and firmly before it grabs. It may not be entirely dry yet, but because it's so quick grab, it'll hold just enough so that you can just start working with it. And so there's the base of our pop-up box. I did already die cut all my mats and layers in advance, and so I've got all of those ready to go. So I'll just start gluing all of those down and get those attached. So I like to decorate both the front of the box as well as sort of the inside flaps. And so you'll see I'll put panels basically, I think, on all of the exposed edges. And I've got some more of the really pretty pattern papers, and if you're looking for dimensions, let me think of if I can remember them offhand. I think the width of the front of the box is 3 inches. So the sides then are 2 1/4. And I think in terms of the height of the box, I think it's 2 1/4 high. And if I remember correctly, yeah. So here's all the images that I stamped out, and I'm just gonna do some fussy cutting to get all of those cut out, and then I am going to attach the little buttons to all of these images, and I know that's gonna add a lot of dimension to my pop-up box, but this may just be one of those cards that either I'm gonna have to be happy with, paying the extra postage, which I definitely don't mind, or it may be the kind of card that I send along with a gift, which is already in, a larger box, and then I don't have to worry about it getting crushed. But I am gonna take some precautions to make sure that there isn't too much dimension, and I'll show you what I mean in a bit. But these images are actually like super fun. I wish I could fussy cut this fast. I like watching my fussy cutting in sped up mode because it's something I hope to aspire to. But these little birds, I just want to make a comment here because the tiny little bird, the smallest button doesn't really fit that bird very well. It's covering way too much of the space that they've left. So I ended up not using that bird. So I did all of that, and then I've just cut myself some strips of acetate. This is not included in this kit, but it is Crafter's Companion acetate that I'm using, and their acetate is nice. It's a good, strong, thick acetate that I am a little bit precious about because it's a nice quality. It stands up, and it's definitely going to hold the weight of these little die cuts with the button. The acetate that I use for the shaker card, for example, that was the standard acetate that I use, which is much thinner than this stuff, and it kind of falls over on its own weight, much less have the strength to actually hold up these die cut elements with the buttons. Okay, so here's the fun part of these pop-up boxes. Now you get to kind of stick these little stands to the pop-up stand and add all of these fun little elements. And generally, when I get to this point, I like to kind of die cut or just have a lot of elements to work with. And in this case, honestly, I would have preferred more just to have more selection, but like I mentioned, I'm not a great fussy cutter, and so I basically made sort of just enough for what I thought I would need, and I think that turned out pretty good. Like I did end up using just about everything. I think everything but that little bird, which I don't think fits anyways, the button that goes with it. So that's not much of a loss, but I am using score tape, which is a very strong double-sided dry adhesive. And as I mentioned, with acetate, I do prefer using a dry adhesive. And score tape, or if you have red liner tape, are great options because they're really, really strong. And the reason why I'm using acetate and not just cardstock is because a lot of these elements are sort of flying elements. So like the hot air balloons are in the sky, the butterfly, those are flying elements. So I want to preserve that sort of impression that they are floating in the air. And with the acetate, it'll help to give that illusion that they are just flying. The bunny, though, he's my central figure, and I'm gonna put him front and center on this first pop-up stand. And You can kind of decide if you want your elements to be glued to the front of the stand or the back of the stand. Um, that's kind of up to you. I wanted the bunny's legs or feet to be shown, so I glued him to the front. But with the pop-up stands, I actually glued those to the back. The acetate stands, I glued those to the back of my, I guess, are they called bridges? Maybe they're called pop-up bridges. Well, whatever they're called, the strips that go across the box. So again, I'm using Beacon 3-in-1 to attach my elements to the acetate, and this is an exception of where I'm not using a dry adhesive, partially because I want that little bit of time to just do some nudging, but also I just wasn't sure if a dry adhesive would be strong enough to hold the buttons. Probably they would, I think, but I was using the Beacon 3-in-1 for any time I was attaching a button to my project. This acetate's also really nice because it has that protective film over it. So while it's stored, or while you're cutting it, while it's just laying on your craft table, you don't have to worry about it getting scratched, and it makes it a little bit opaque so you can see it. But because once you peel that off, it is very crystal clear. So and having that film protects that surface so that it stays nice and smooth and doesn't get any scratches. But while you've got it on your tabletop, you can definitely still see it while the protective film is still on there. So again, as I mentioned, this is an occasion where I've got the intention to create a pop-up box, but I obviously haven't figured out exactly where I'm going to put my elements, and so a lot of this is just a kind of flying by the seat of my pants and putting things wherever I feel like the composition needs to have something, and wherever I need little splashes of color. So I am also going to apply directly onto the backdrop. So this is just going to go right onto the back of the card and not onto, as opposed to onto one of those acetate stands. And the butterflies are super cute, and I did very, very, very simplistic coloring. I just picked two colors and just filled it in. There's no blending or anything, and in fact, because I stamped this all out with Versafine, I had to go with a water-based marker as opposed to an alcohol-based marker. So that's kind of why I've been really liking hybrid inks lately. So I think Nuvo, I think by default, I think they just have hybrid inks, and Gina K Design has a nice hybrid ink. And those are great because you can stamp everything out and then decide later if whatever coloring medium you plan to use, whether it's alcohol, solvent-based, or if it's water-based, it won't matter because these hybrid inks are really great for both water-based inks or your alcohol markers. So I'm going to speed this up because it takes me a while to kind of figure out where all I want to place things. But what I alluded to earlier was that as I'm doing this, you'll sort of see me close the box down and nudge things. And the reason for that is that I'm trying to be careful that whenever I place something down, when the box is closed, I'm still going to only end up with one layer of buttons. So meaning when the box is closed, you'll never have two buttons on top of each other. So I do think this will go through the mail okay. And I don't even think it would cost extra, right? At least not for thickness, maybe for weight. I'm not sure. But either way, this way you don't have buttons that are stacked on top of each other, but you still get, that nice effect. And so that's sort of why you see me closing and pinching and making sure from the top that there's only one only ever one sort of thickness of buttons. So that's what I'm doing there. And of course, you've probably noticed this about me. The sentiment is like the last thing I think of. So here I'm realizing, oh, I should add one. And I have a lot of these little off cuts, like strips of 1-inch card. So I'm just going to use that. And I really like these sentiments that they've included, but as I mentioned, I would have preferred larger fonts on some of them because they're just so, like, this thinking of you, it's just so small. And I wasn't sure which one I wanted to go with, but in the end, I went with the, I think, May Your Day Bloom with Happiness. So, as I mentioned, lovely, lovely kit. But a couple things that, I feel like for me anyways, would have made it like an A++ kind of kit, which is, maybe fewer graphics, but, include a die that is of a button and maybe some button stamps and larger or more variety in fonts. Here I'm showing you that little bird that was left over and why I didn't use it. So you can see how much the button covers. It's not... yeah, there was no way to use that. So yeah, I mean, I feel like this could have been like a really fantastic hit if I didn't have to, go out and buy those additional elements to really feel like, okay, now I can really use this kit, because the color buttons that they have, I think I'm showcasing all of them here. So if you didn't want that color palette, you're kind of stuck unless you bought more buttons or found a different, or just stuck to what they have, right? So here again is the same recap as what you saw at the beginning of the video. So if you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. This is the exact same clip as before, but as I was saying, yeah, I feel like I would have much preferred the button dies and button stamps, and I think that would have really made this perfect. But if you're looking for those elements, just know that Sunny Studios Stamps has a really cute, affordable set, and you can buy them separately. You don't have to buy both the stamp set and the buttons. And when I bought it, I think it was on clearance even, so I don't know how much longer it's going to be available, and if it's going to be the sort of thing that they retire eventually. But I definitely am glad to have purchased it, because now I can die cut buttons, out of whatever I want, foam, various color cardstock, etc. They do only have the one size die, which fits really well with the images that are for the largest size button. So maybe that's going to render some of the other images not quite as useful for the smaller ones, but I might be able to find in my stash some circle dies that are small enough for those areas or the images where they've used smaller buttons, like the butterfly that you see here. Those I think are the smallest size buttons. So we'll see. I'll just have to dig around in my stash a little bit, but at least I have something for those larger elements. All in all, though, a really cute box. I do enjoy, or I did enjoy using the kit, and I do think it's really fun, the whole aspect of it. And so I'm gonna dive into this kit more, especially now that I have the stamp and dies. Thanks so much for joining me. If you like this format of video, let me know. If you don't like it, also let me know. I appreciate the constructive criticism. And until my next video, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Thanks. Bye.